Welcome, Chief Scientist Cricken. Thank you for accepting our invitation. We are gathered here today to discuss your complaint against Major Miller. Your accusations are quite serious, and before we officially register your report, we want to ensure that everyone fully understands exactly what happened. Chief Scientist Cricken bowed his head in greeting towards the two high officials across the table, trying to remain calm. Greetings, Admiral Iyer, Captain O'Neill. I am aware that my report is very blunt, but I stand by my accusations and am willing to clarify any issues you may have encountered with my report. I must state from the start that if this meeting's purpose is to cover up Major Miller's outrageous behavior, then I will not comply with this. The little scientist puffed up and stared defiantly at the human captain. The human smiled and gently waved both his hands in denial. No, it's nothing like that, Doctor. This is the first time you have collaborated with a human team, and Admiral Skrilly asked me to participate in this meeting to see if I can explain some of Major Miller's actions that may not seem justified to you. This way, your report can be as accurate as possible. It is my job to clear up any misunderstandings that inevitably arise when different species work together. I want you to know that I did not discuss anything with the Major before this meeting regarding this issue. I only read your complaint, and as we mentioned before, it is quite serious. You used words like sabotage of the mission, incompetence, misuse of authority, cowardice, paranoia, and even assault on your person and your fellow scientist. Clearly, something went very wrong, and I want to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again. To get the full picture, could you tell us in your own words what exactly happened? Fine, grumbled the scientist, not entirely convinced of the human captain's impartiality. We were orbiting planet SR 395887. Our scans showed that it was capable of sustaining life, but the atmosphere, even if breathable, is very dense. Kilometer-thick clouds constantly cover the entire planet, so any further investigations had to be conducted from the ground. I was assigned to lead the team that first landed on SR 395887. My role, besides leader, was that of a biologist. I was supposed to look for life forms. The team also had one geologist and one botanist. Major Miller and two other human Marines were assigned as the security team. The last member of our team was the pilot of our shuttle. We landed without incident somewhere in the northern hemisphere of the planet, where our scans indicated the largest landmass, tolerable temperatures, and a breathable atmosphere. We landed in a small clearing surrounded by a forest. After touchdown, we conducted a preliminary scan with the shuttle sensors, but the clouds above were replaced with a thick mist on the ground, limiting the sensor's range to about 300 meters. In this scanned area, we did not detect anything out of place. Only trees, plants, and very small life forms like insects and birds. The security team exited the shuttle first, followed by the science team. The pilot remained at his controls and continued to scan the surrounding area due to the reduced visibility on the ground, which was only about 15-20 meters. Major Miller suggested that we keep our preliminary investigation of the planet within the area covered by the shuttle sensors. I agreed to this request. The planet was teeming with life, and my fellow scientists were very excited, myself included. We all began to collect samples, minerals, plants, insects. Not even 5 minutes after we entered the forest and no more than 100 meters away from the shuttle, Major Miller unexpectedly grabbed me and told us all to stop and not to move. We all froze, thinking he had detected a threat of some kind. I asked him what was wrong, and he told me to keep quiet and not move. Then he told us all to crouch as close to the ground as possible. He checked with the pilot if anything had changed on the shuttle's sensors. The pilot answered that the scans showed no changes. Miller reiterated his order for everyone to stay down and not move. He slowly pushed me behind him, signaled me to stay still, and very carefully advanced 2 or 3 more meters. He stopped near a small patch of ground covered with leaves. He moved some leaves around, stopped, and cursed. This is where Major Miller's behavior stopped making any sense. The leaves were probably gathered in a small depression in the ground because Miller reached down into the leaves and took a stick from the small depression. He then slowly returned to us and told me that we needed to get back to the shuttle as soon as possible, because this was a dangerous area. Naturally, I demanded an explanation. What was wrong? What did he see? He did not answer me, just showed me the stick he had picked up, then threw it to one of his Marines and told him to bag it. Miller instructed us all to return to the shuttle quickly and quietly and to follow the exact path we had taken. I was outraged. I expressed my refusal to Major Miller. There was so much work to be done, so many more samples to collect. You can't scrap a mission just because one member has a fear of sticks or whatever was wrong with him. We were there to learn about the planet, to find out if it was habitable, and to gather as much data as possible. The chief scientist began to recount his story, his voice tense with frustration. There was intelligent life on the planet, and many other things too. When I started to explain this, Major Miller shushed me and told me I should consider the mission accomplished. He said it was his prerogative to abort the mission if he perceived any threat. He ordered us to get to the shuttle immediately, claiming we were in a dangerous zone with an intelligent, possibly advanced race that could pose a danger to us. He insisted we should return with more security and diplomats. I refused and demanded proof. Sighing, he asked, "Didn't you see the stick?" I told him he was delusional and tried to move past him to continue my job. That's when Miller grabbed me. His species is nearly 3 times larger than mine, so I was powerless to escape his grasp. I clearly and loudly asked him to release me, but he just put a hand over my mouth and silenced me. He then ordered the 2 Marines to grab my colleagues and get to the shuttle. The Marines complied, and the whole team was forcefully loaded into the shuttle. By this time, I was furious, but also scared for the safety of my colleagues. I told Major Miller I disagreed with his decision and would submit a formal complaint. Then, I refused to interact with him further, locking myself and my 2 scientist colleagues in one cabin. I feared that in his paranoia, he might harm us. It was my first time working with humans, and I didn't know how far his abnormal behavior would go or what had caused it. That's the whole story, as short as the mission itself was, thanks to Major Miller. Chief Scientist Cricken took a sip of water, clearly agitated. Admiral Skrilly looked troubled, while Captain O'Neill appeared thoughtful. "I think I know what happened," O'Neill said, pressing a comm button and asking to be relayed to Major Miller's comm bead. When he got confirmation, he spoke into the comm using speaker mode so everyone could hear. "Major Miller, Captain O'Neill here. I was looking over a report regarding the mission on planet SR 39587. You seem to have gotten worked up about some stick." "It was a puny stick, sir," Miller replied, "sharpened in one cut and dirty." "Thank you, Major. I'm just sorry that Mr. Cricken didn't want to listen to my explanation once we were back in the shuttle." "It's okay, I'll talk to him and try to explain," O'Neill said before closing the comm line. Chief Scientist Cricken exploded. "You see? He got paranoid about a stick and doesn't even deny it." "Calm down, Mr. Cricken," O'Neill said. "Let me explain. Your species is the oldest sapient species we know of, much more advanced than anyone else. The last real wars you fought are almost mythical now. Your weapons are battle cruisers or entire space stations, and you have battle mechs for more hands-on combat. Meanwhile, we discovered faster-than-light travel just 10 years ago. Compared to you, we are like apes fighting with sticks and stones. But because of this, every soldier among us knows about punji sticks. These are weapons, or traps to be more precise. The stick Miller mentioned was camouflaged with leaves. There were probably several sticks in that pile. If you had stepped into it, you would have been impaled and seriously injured. A trap like this means a sentient creature set it up. So, congratulations on discovering a new intelligent race." Cricken began to understand the importance of the discovery. "Oh my," he muttered. "We must return immediately and make contact with that species." "Yes," O'Neill agreed. "But this doesn't change the fact that Major Miller got scared of a stick trap. Any species using sticks as weapons wouldn't pose a significant threat to our team." "Captain, as you heard Major Miller just now, he mentioned that the stick was sharpened with one cut. That means it was sharpened with a metal tool, not a stone one like this knife here." As he spoke, he placed his own melee weapon on the table with a solid clank. If there are sentient creatures out there carrying these types of tools and they perceived you as trespassers, the situation could have turned very ugly, very fast. Let me tell you from experience, even our troops still use primitive stick traps if necessary. So, On SR 395887, we're talking about a species that is at least in the Iron Age, but probably even more advanced. Congratulations, Chief Scientist. Cricken gulped and took another sip of water. Deep down, he was already convinced that withdrawing had been the best move, but now he worried that he had missed signs of a sentient race. We don't know that for sure. Maybe the tree that the stick was made from splits into nice, even cuts. Or maybe they have a stone that splits into really strong and sharp edges, he said, grasping at straws. He wasn't ready to admit that Miller had been right all along. For all we know, that pit was used for hunting wild animals. There's nothing to indicate aggression from the builders of the trap. O'Neill looked thoughtful for a second, then shook his head in denial. No, it's pretty obvious you guys were in a dangerous area. Miller said that the stick was dirty, meaning the tip, the sharp part, was tainted with something, probably feces. This means two things. One, the species has some knowledge about bacteria and infections, so the Stone Age theory doesn't hold up. And two, it wasn't meant for prey animals. No hunter wants to taint his soon-to-be food. This was meant for enemies, to kill them with infections if the impaling fails. That's barbaric. Chief Scientist Cricken murmured. Well, that's apes in the mud for you. But overall, in my opinion, the Major recognized a dangerous situation. You were probably in a war zone, putting safety first, and his decision to extract you and your team from there quickly and quietly was the best call, even if it meant carrying you out against your will. So what do you think? Care to revise your report before making it official? Asked the now smiling human captain. Well, of course I want to revise it. I just wish the Major would have explained it to us. You said you locked yourself in a cabin. I know. Admiral, I officially request you to disregard my initial report. I will present a revised one tomorrow. Now, I need to go apologize to Major Miller and his team. Captain, I believe it is your custom to pave the road to conciliation with lots of alcoholic beverages? Well, yes, the reluctant captain answered, his smile fading. Okay then, may I be excused? Of course, answered Admiral Skrill. As the little scientist exited the room, the human captain turned to the Admiral. After I just explained to him about the apes in the mud thing, he wants to get the said apes drunk. He sighed. Guess I'll see you tomorrow then.